Let's talk about context in record triggered flows. And what we mean by context is that when you create a record triggered flow, it's going to ask you, are you creating a fast field updates flow, or are you creating a or an actions and related records flow? These are the two options. And this is what we mean by context. It's one of these two options. In Salesforce, we have two ways to build triggers or automations that run on CRUD operations, on create, on update, on delete. These are declarative ways, like record triggered flows, or programmatic ways, and that's Apex trigger. If you were to create an Apex trigger, you will have one of two options. It's either a before save trigger or an after save trigger. In record triggered flows, that translates to fast field updates, which is similar to before save triggers, and actions and related records, which is similar to after save Apex trigger. And you're gonna hear this from other Salesforce professionals. People are going to say before save flow. They mean fast field updates of a record triggered flow. And when people say after save flow, they're referring to actions and related records in a record triggered flow. Now, let's talk about the timeline. Remember, the timeline and the order of execution is not just what's happening because of this flow, but it's rather like broader than this. When you click save on a record, a few things happen, like system validation, like required fields, and then there might be some validation rules, and there might be some declarative automations, record triggered flows, and then there would be programmatic triggers, Apex triggers, and there might be other things that are running when you click save. So there is just more than just the timeline of the flow, but we're gonna focus on the flow only for now. Just remember there's other things that may be happening. Starting off with when you go to create a new record, you go to a list view, you click new, you populate some data, and then you click save. We're talking about the part before you clicked save. Now we haven't clicked save yet. At this point, this is the record that you are attempting to create or update. The database is still empty. This record has not gone to the database yet, and then you haven't clicked save yet. And then you click save. What happens after you click save is after you click save, the record, the before save flow is going to run. Let's say that we have an automation called auto rename that's running in fast field updates. This flow is going to run at this point. At this point, the record has not been sent to the database yet. Before save or fast field flows is like if you were to type one additional field like the description field, but you don't want to do it and you want the system to do it for you. So it's as if someone is actually typing it down on the record before it actually gets saved to the database. So fast field updates run the moment you click save, and they perform some updates on the record, like renaming the name field, doing something in the description field, updating some date on the record, some updates on the record that triggered the flow, not on any other record. It's only on the record that triggered the flow. There are some characteristics of the record at this point. Because it hasn't been sent to the database yet, it doesn't have a record ID, it doesn't have a created date, and it doesn't have a last modified date. This is information that gets generated after the record gets saved to the database. So before save flows run before this happens. Like this hasn't happened yet. Next, immediately after, the after save flow is going to run. Assuming that we have an after save flow on the same object, then after save flow is going to run. After save, you might have an operation like send an email out. This is just like an example. There are other things. At this point, the after save flow will have access to the following information. At this point, the record got sent to the database, got saved into the database. And the fact that it is now in the database, it means that a record ID has been generated, the created date field has been populated, and the last modified date has been populated. And the fact that we have a record ID here means that you can create related records right now. Remember, if you were to create a child record, you're going to need to populate that lookup or master detail field. And to do that, you're going to need the ID of that record. So if you're, let's say that this save button is on a parent record, and then we're going to need to create a child record. To create the child, we're going to need the record ID of the parent. So in order to create a related record, it has to run on after save because you need the record ID. Then after this after save flow runs, at this point, one of two things is going to happen. It's either this is like everything is successful from before save and after save, then the record is committed to the database. You're going to see these two terms in Salesforce documentation. If you were to reading like what happens after save in after save flow, it's going to say the record after save is saved to the database but not committed yet. If it is successful, then it gets committed to the database. If it fails, then it gets rolled back from the database. So the term saved means that it actually got sent to the database, but it is waiting or pending to make sure that this process and every other process is successful before it remains in the database. So the word committed means that it's now remaining and continue to remain in the database. Everything has been successful. If it is just saved, then there is still some process that's going to run. And all of this is running in one transaction. Once the transaction is successful, then the record stays put in the database. If it fails, then it gets rolled back from the database. So yes, a record can get saved and then gets rolled back from the database.